Welcome, everyone. Quiet, please. We'd like to call the meeting to order. At this time, I'd like to ask Councilwoman Nanette Cook to lead us in prayer and Councilman Bruce Conk to lead us in the pledge.
We gather together here today intent on doing good work. We seek to represent fairly and well those who have given us this task. May our efforts be blessed with insight, guided by understanding and wisdom. We seek to serve with respect for all. May our personal faiths give us strength to act honestly and well in all matters before us. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag Thank you, Councilwoman Nanette Cook. Thank you, Councilman Bruce Conk. Appreciate it very much. Welcome. I'd like to welcome everyone here this evening, and hope y'all had a great day. Hope everybody stayed dry, and we'll get started with the meeting here. We welcome you to the City Parish Council meeting. We, as your representatives in the Lafayette Consolidated Government, welcome your involvement and encourage your participation. This meeting is a public hearing. If you wish to address the council on any item on this agenda, please fill out the request form in the foyer on the computer that is provided. The electronic request to address the council form must be filled out and submitted prior to the call of the agenda item, or you will not be given the opportunity to speak. If assistance is needed with submitting the request, staff is available to help you. In the event a speaker has completed their comments prior to the expiration of their allotted 5 minutes, any remaining time shall be forfeited. If you have materials you wish to submit to the council, please give those to Council Clerk Ms. Veronica Williams, who is seated to my left in the middle. In an effort to allow everyone an opportunity to be heard, the 5-minute rule will be in effect. Speakers shall refrain from debating personal attacks and from making confrontational or derogatory comments. I'm requesting that the first row to my left be used for media only. Lastly, food and drinks are not allowed in the auditorium, and then we ask that all phones and electronic devices be silenced from this point forward. I am requesting that anyone who approaches the council please state your name and title for the official record. Meeting procedures are by resolution and not by Robert's Rules of Order. Documents including the agenda, ordinances, and resolutions and minutes related to the meeting are posted online at www.lafayette.la.gov, or you can refer to the web address on the top of the agenda. The council encourages your involvement and participation by volunteering for boards and commissions. If you are interested in finding out what board suits you or your interests, please call 291-8800 or pick up a pamphlet at the front door. Moving to chair announcements. Per state law requirement, I am announcing the Lafayette City Parish Council will consider resolutions calling for an election with regard to certain taxes on Tuesday, August the 7th, 2018 at 5:30 p.m. at 705 West University Avenue, Lafayette, Louisiana, 70506. Due to the 4th of July holiday, the July meetings are scheduled for July 10th and 24th on the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays of the month instead of the normal 1st and 3rd Tuesday. The council will return to the 1st and 3rd Tuesday meetings starting back in August. Item 10, briefing on sheriff sales tax proposal. Because the sheriff has another engagement, I've moved this item at the top of the agenda to follow item number 5. Item 12, ordinance number 0-83-2018, relative to 111 Silverstone Road rezoning. At the request of the applicant, DNP has submitted the request to defer indefinitely. DNP will let us know if and when it will be placed back on the agenda. Item 17, ordinance number 0-90-2018, relative to a lease agreement with 201 West Vermilion for use by Lafayette Police Department, has a proposed amendment to add to the lease agreement and an Exhibit A as backup. Item number 20, ordinance number 0-93-2018, relative to the UDC, the Development and Planning Department has proposed amendments to provide for correction of small typos, errors, and clarifications, in addition to a couple of amendments following conversations with the developers, council members, and staff. Item 23 and 24, alcohol appeals to the office bar are being withdrawn per the appellant's request. Item 27, introductory of ordinance 0-99-2018 relative to the transferring of existing bond funds to projects within the Public Works Department is being pulled from the global list at introduction for a separate vote and discussion per council member Hebert's request. And last, I would like to wish Ms. Kathy Doty, council receptionist, a happy birthday, which she will celebrate on June the 26th. Kathy, if you're in here or are you watching, happy birthday. Just to make everyone aware, District 8's voting monitor is out of order and is scheduled to be replaced. She will be off for tonight's meeting. Liz Hebert will vote and will be by voice recognition, not by electronic. All right, with all that out of the way, let's move right on to council announcements. Councilman Boudreaux.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Many of you all know that tonight is a very proud night for an individual. I think it should be a proud night for LCG, but it's also a somewhat remorseful, I guess, that we're losing such a talent. Tonight, our planning director is having her last meeting. I'd like Carly to come forward, please. Many of y'all, I don't know the extent of her entire career. Her work makes it seem as though she's been around here for about 40 years. Carly started in the mayor's office under a previous administration, and now she serves as a director under this administration. And one of the first things I would say is that whenever someone can survive transitions of that nature, I think it speaks volumes. The fact that as leadership turns over, that they could recognize talent that the people of Lafayette benefit from. I could tell you when the news was first shared with me, it wasn't a pleasant scene. Carly, if any of you all have had to work with her work ethic, her work commitment, her work intensity is just immeasurable. It's unbelievable. The private sector and the company she is going to is getting a jewel. But I just wanted to call her forward tonight and just say on behalf of all of the citizens of the city and parish of Lafayette, thank you. Thank you for all that you have done, every single initiative that you have brought forward, all of the information and the research, and just what you have done to enhance development here in Lafayette, but also services to people in general. You're one of my favorite, and I think that we have been blessed here in LCG with great directors, great chiefs, great managers throughout. But as it speaks to directors, I don't hesitate to say you're one of my favorite, and you've earned that. It's been a joy and an honor to work with you over these last years, and just always keep us in mind, and come back and advise from time to time, and don't change your phone number.
Got it. Got it.
All right, but thank you very much.
Thank you all. If I can just extend the thank you the other way to the council, to the administration, to my staff who are amazing, and then to the citizens. It's been an amazing 8 years, and I've loved every minute of it. And if I can help on the private side as a citizen, I would be honored to be asked. So thank you so much.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right, not seeing any other council announcements. At this time, I'll move over to the Executive Mayor's President's Report. At this time, I'd like to recognize Mayor President Robideau.
Mr. Chairman, I think Council Member Cook may have put a small token on each of your desks that says it's a boy. There's a picture, and so I just wanted to congratulate our esteemed legal counsel Happy grandfather. It's a peppermint. It's not, yes, not a cigar.
Yeah. I don't think you can smoke these.
Also, I'd like to recognize the Acadiana Repertory Theater of Lafayette, known as ART. They were recently honored with the 2018 Applause Award from the International Center for Women Playwrights. It honors theaters that feature productions written by women for at least half of the season. This organization is one of our shining examples of partners in the cultural economy that boost Lafayette as a place to create and honor our cultural traditions. And as Mayor President, I'd like to congratulate and thank ART for their efforts in Lafayette Parish. I don't know if anyone's here. Raise your hand from ART. Thank you all very much for everything that you've done, and congratulations on the award. And then lastly, just building on what Kenneth said earlier, you know, there was a time when I was a parent that if I got a text after midnight, I was worried what one of my kids did. And as I became empty, my wife and I became empty nesters. When I got a text after midnight, it was, what does Carly want? And she works nonstop, always has. She will be so incredibly difficult to replace. And, you know, there's rules in government because she's technically not retiring about the certificates and all. But I do want to present to you, Carly, with a plaque that, knowing that you're not from here, we went ahead and made you an honorary Cajun for all of your time spent here. And based on the amount of work that you've done, I figure you've been here, like Kenneth said, for at least 40 years. So if you don't mind, come up and receive the plaque. Thank you, Councilman Terrio. That was a poor choice of words. And so for me, that's all on my agenda. But Carly's going to be sadly missed, and I know everyone's kind of going to work through it in their own way, but it will certainly be difficult. And is Danielle here? Danielle, if you don't mind, raise your hand, stand up so everyone. Danielle is going to help us in the transition. She is the interim director with a ton of experience. You can go read the press release if you'd like, but I wanted y'all to be able to put a face with Danielle so that y'all know who to target for your questions going forward. So, Danielle, thanks and welcome. That's all from me, Mr. Chairman. Thanks.
All right. Thank you very much.
And Mr. Chair,
Yes,
if I may, since we're acknowledging staff who's leaving, I would like to introduce Cindy Hebert, who came to us as an administrative secretary. She did such an awesome and phenomenal job that another position opened up, and she's here today, and she will be reading at her first meeting. So we would like to welcome Cindy to the meeting tonight.
Welcome, Cindy. All right. Before we go to comments from the public, like I stated in my earlier chair announcements, at this time I'd like to call up the sheriff so he has an opportunity to brief us and if we have any questions as a council.
Side, or is this?
You're good.
All right.
You could use either one. You can use the middle. You can use the.
Okay. So with the chair and the council's permission, what I'd like to do is make a brief statement as to the initiative that I'm proposing to bring to the voters, and then take any questions, or we can just go straight into questions if y'all would prefer.
Go ahead and give you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. So right now, the Lafayette Parish Sheriff's Office Law Enforcement District has an existing 1-cent sales tax, which is in the unincorporated parts of the parish only. This was created or enacted in 2002. Back in 2002, as we all know, there was quite a bit more unincorporated area than there is now. Back then, the first year in effect, it raised about $4 million, and over time that peaked at some point. Then it's gone back down, and there's not even a $500,000 difference between what it was raising in 2002 and what it presently raises. So this is an existing tax that I'm working with, and my proposal to the voters is to reduce it to 3/4 of a cent and reapportion it across the entire parish. And it does have a food and drug exclusion. So going through the history of it, we've already covered that. I could see when I was running for office that the sheriff's office was in trouble financially looking at the audits. The past year, the audits told the story of an impending problem. My first year in office, before I was even actually sworn in as sheriff, I was told by the outgoing CFO that I would need to borrow money to make payroll at the end of the year. I'm not going to belabor the councils and take up y'all's time with my budget woes, but I did inherit debt in the amount of $37 million. 17 million of it on the public safety complex, 17.5 million, give or take. It's about a million a year in interest alone on the payments on it. And also another 20 million in unfunded future liabilities having to do with retirements and all that, as all of you know who've looked at audits, that those have to be calculated. I would like to address those fund balances so that I don't have to borrow money to make payroll at the end of every year. I would like to have a fund that I could operate on for about a year if we came up on hard times. I'd like to have, in other words, a positive fund balance. And as I'm going to get into, I will eventually, once I achieve what I need to achieve, I'm prepared to reduce my property tax millages to give back to the property owners in the parish. I'm not just going to accumulate money from this tax and keep building a balance. And my law enforcement district is going to file a resolution to that effect before this ever goes to the voters. This model has been followed and been in practice before in Calcasieu Parish, where Sheriff Mancuso did a 1 cent sales tax parish-wide. And then once he accomplished specific objectives that he had identified in his resolution, he then reduced his property tax millages. I think that that's a good model to follow because it goes hand in hand with my strategy of why a sales tax. I believe that a sales tax that excludes food and drugs is more fair to support law enforcement services than it is to put that solely on the backs of the property owners. Right now, the vast majority of my budget comes from property tax millages. And I don't want to, and I have no intention of putting a property tax millage on the ballot, even though it would be far easier for me to do so. I have authority as sheriff to hold a special election. Got it. I can hold a special election for a property tax millage, whereas I have to go on a regularly scheduled election if I want to do a sales tax. And so I chose instead to do a sales tax anyway because I feel like in fact, the data supports it. There's about 60,000 people that come in our parish every day that don't live here. We are a destination for dining. We're a destination for lodging, being a hub here in Acadiana and being situated as we are on the I-10 and I-49 corridors. So what we have is a lot of use of our community by people who aren't from here. We also have a lot of use of police services, frankly, law enforcement services, correctional services, by people who don't own property and are unlikely to ever own property and pay property taxes. So my rationale was to spread this out, have everybody pay a little bit, and support law enforcement operations. This proposal, this 3/4 of a cent parish-wide, stands to raise approximately $38 million based on last year's sales tax figures from the school board. Of that $38 million, about $13.5 to $14 million would be apportioned to the Lafayette City Police. And the way that is calculated, my 3/4 of a cent parish-wide, I collect the full 3/4 of a cent outside of the city of Lafayette. Within the corporate city limits of Lafayette, I split that 50-50 with the Lafayette Police Department. And I would ask the council to take notice that I do have representatives of the police department here with us tonight in support of this, and they will speak, I'm sure if asked, to speak in support of what we're going to bring to the voters. I would also like to address, I think, some concerns by different council members that have arisen as to why have you not heard from me on this before. We weren't ready to come to you before. This has not been officially released to the media. The materials that I placed before you in the blue folders, the first thing that you'll see is a draft, and it's not a public draft. I have not released it to the media. I would ask that your offices not release it, but I thought it best to share it with you all so you could see where we're going with this. This is about 85 to 90% ready, but it's not 100% ready yet because I haven't gotten with y'all's legal about it yet. What I have done is I've gone through Jerry Osborne, who is a bond attorney that we've all used and very well respected in the business. He's helped us draft this statutory language for this measure to be put before the voters. And he assures me that what I'm proposing to do by apportioning some funds between the law enforcement district and the city government is perfectly legal as long as it goes to law enforcement. What I initially intended to do was to address the fire problem as well. And I'd spoken with fire union representatives. I thought I was going to just do this for public safety. But apparently I'm legally precluded from doing that. If in the future there's a way, if we can, with Mayor President's expertise and his colleagues in the legislature, it makes all the sense in the world to me that public safety includes fire. And that would have taken care of that. But alas, I'm unable to include fire, absolutely unequivocally. But I stand here before you tonight having a very good faith belief that I can, in fact, share the proposed sharing with this Lafayette city government. And this isn't a parish city sharing. This is a law enforcement district sharing with another law enforcement agency that exist within that law enforcement district, just to put it in context for the council members. Just a couple of housekeeping matters. I know that not everybody, I guess, understands my power as a sheriff to go before the voters unilaterally, but I'm not asking the council tonight to adopt any resolution or to vote in favor of this. I'm here before the council because all of you represent voters in this parish, voters who are my voters, as they are parish-wide, and I would ask that you inform your voters about it. I want every one of you to be informed about this tax measure. I want to be as transparent as anyone has ever been. I want to be completely transparent about it. There is nothing to hide here, with that, I would welcome any questions from any of you.
Okay. Thank you, Sheriff. Councilman Call.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It was I who had requested the sheriff appear before the council to provide some clarification as to what was his intent. And looking at this rough draft on the proposition, I see that you are saying that you will dedicate a portion of the sales tax collected within the city of Lafayette to the Lafayette Police Department. But I'm curious as to why is there an additional comment pursuant to an intergovernmental agreement between the city and the district?
Well, because I'm told by this outside counsel we consulted that I referenced earlier, Mr. Osborne, that I would in fact have to enter an intergovernmental agreement, the law enforcement district with the city government. And I included a statute, I included in y'all's packet statutes that allow me to bring this tax and also the statutes that allow me to contract with outside entities, including a city government, just for your reference.
So the proposition would bind you to providing half of the revenues within the city of Lafayette sales tax collections to Lafayette Police Department, and that would include an IGA with Lafayette Consolidated Government.
It would be buying through the IGA, and my appreciation is that by wording it the way we have in this draft, that money is protected, meaning that it can only be used for law enforcement services and operations and salaries and personnel.
And that would provide some assurances to those of us on the council when we approve a salary increase based on that revenue would be forthcoming.
Correct.
Okay, that was one of my concerns. The other thing, Sheriff, that I'm just curious because I wasn't on the council when the last sales tax came up for consideration. You, as the sheriff, called for the ballot proposition, correct?
That's correct.
What will be on the ballot? This proposition, as initially that we're seeing this.
Well, as you see it there, that like I said, I'm 85 to 90% done with it. I don't think there's going to be really any substantive changes from this point forward, but it's obviously subject to the city parish government's legal review of it and any requested changes.
What's your timeline for making this public?
Well, it's this summer. We're getting close. That's why it's really appropriate for me to be here now. I know that we've had some media coverage about it ahead of time, but that was because word got out and I had to address the questions from the media. So it should be ready as soon as we are done, which we pretty much are. I'm really going to be in a position pretty soon, I think by July, to make it public.
You are in a rather unique position because you are basically a board of one. It is your district. You're the chief executive officer, correct?
Correct.
We as a council have to go through a certain protocol when we call a tax election. We have to give public notice, as we did tonight, no earlier than 30 days in advance and no later than 60, I think, the way it goes. How do you communicate that to the public?
Well, I've got that all calendared. I've got to give certain public notices. I don't know offhand. That wasn't something. I apologize. I wasn't expecting to address those particular aspects of it. I was more focused in my preparation on the questions that I've informally been asked by different council members and members of the public. So I can get that information to you, though.
And just to do an overall question, in the interest of transparency, how do you communicate this entire initiative to the public? Will you have a marketing campaign, a public relations campaign, in addition to the legal requirements?
Yes. What I intend to do is engage in a campaign of direct mailing. Also, there's been a fair amount of media interest in this already, and I think there will continue to be. I have formed a political action committee, and I'm raising money in that PAC to put out materials. I think that my main approach is going to be direct mail to the registered voters of the parish to inform them of the actual facts of what this money is going to be used for and the protections afforded.
And just to be very clear to the public, this is not a council initiative, and this does not require council action on any aspect of the ballot proposition, correct?
Correct. I'm before the council, as I stated earlier, to inform the council members because we all share the same voters, and I want the council members to be informed, and I hope that you all will personally vote in favor of this. And also out of respect, because it is your police department that I am proposing to enter into this joint venture with. And so obviously, at least indirectly, it is your business to be involved in this as a city parish government.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Cohn. Councilman Terrio.
Thank you, sir. Sheriff, you and I briefly spoke before the meeting, and a couple of questions I just wanted to bring out that I had been approached by. Number one was a couple of the municipalities that I represent. One is currently at 10.5%. Another one is not far from that. But if the 3/4 inch sales tax were to pass, that would put them at 11.25%.
Yes, sir.
Now, you mentioned that because you're the sheriff and you have your own taxing authority, you have the ability to bring this election forward. How can I say this? Under state law, there is usually a cap as to what's the highest amount of sales tax that a municipality can charge. If I'm not mistaken, I thought that was 11%. But you're saying because you have the authority to do so, that can be waived, and that municipality would actually be at 11.25.
Yes, sir. That's my appreciation as well. Sheriffs are allowed to exceed that through their law enforcement district. I'm not being funded right now to provide the services that I'm providing in Youngsville, and I'm not suggesting that Youngsville fund me. What I'm suggesting is that I get the funding and I continue to provide those services and provide them even better than I am right now. And that's going to be my message to the voters. And in fact, I do have an appointment scheduled to appear before the Youngsville City Council and present this to them much in the same manner as I'm presenting it to this council tonight.
Okay. But you do understand the concern that people have. I mean, that's a high sales tax for a municipality to have that.
Yeah, I mean, they got it up there already, on their, by their own decisions. And I'm responsible to every person in this parish. Every voter, every non-voter, I'm responsible to them as the chief law enforcement authority to serve and protect them.
Yeah. And just to recap something you mentioned earlier, you said currently in the unincorporated area, you're charging, is it a 3/4% sales tax?
It's actually 1%.
1%.
Yeah, there's very
Yes.
little being collected. It's mostly, for if somebody's building a house out there, then they're actually going to see a reduction in the unincorporated areas. So if you're building a house and you're buying your things from Doug Ashley or Home Depot, well, you pay sales tax based on the delivery address, not on the address of the physical store. And so that's really been the main contributor to that in the DMV, because you pay taxes on where your address is on a car, for example, that you would buy. I think it's worth noting that my initial plan that I started with last year was to do a half cent. But when I got kind of started behind the scenes with this, representatives of the police union came to me and said, look, we need more pay, we need more personnel, we need these things, and I agree 100%, that they do, because I also want to note that it's in my best interest to have a strong Lafayette Police Department, that I support the Lafayette Police being a very capable agency like they are and being ready for tomorrow's threats. Well, a half cent, if I split it with them, was not going to be enough to address my financial needs going forward and being ready for the future. And I'm trying not to make the same mistake that my predecessors made and just to do this one time. So I had to add that 1/4 cent to accommodate the funding needs for the future, if you will, tomorrow's threats for the Lafayette Police.
Okay, very good. How would you convince an individual, say in one of the municipalities, that would make a comment that would say something like, well, we have our own municipality, we have our own police department. Why would it benefit us to contribute to a sales tax or vote for a sales tax that would provide money to the sheriff and the city of Lafayette?
Well, it's a very good question, and what the sheriff's office provides to the municipalities that do not include the city of Lafayette. We provide dispatch service, we serve their warrants, we provide crime scene investigation, we provide major crimes investigation like for homicides and serious offenses. We have an 8-person intelligence unit that supplements those investigations and brings them to ground very quickly. We provide patrol support. Whenever they become understaffed and overwhelmed, as in the Broussard's case recently with the last homicide they had, we took over their calls for service. We come in with extra manpower every time they have a Christmas parade or a Mardi Gras parade. Those, frankly, wouldn't be possible without the sheriff's offices. We have the Juvenile Assessment Center that we run that frees up school board time, that frees up the patrol officers' time to just simply bring a juvenile there and drop them off, whereas otherwise they would not be taken. Almost 9.9 times out of 10, they wouldn't be taken at the juvenile detention home. We collect their taxes, we process their civil processing and property forfeitures. We have a full-time SWAT team that responds. These agencies don't have a SWAT team. So what you'd have to have, in addition to having the chief and the assistant chief and the lieutenants who are there for administration, which is already duplicitous, you'd also have to have certified homicide investigators, SWAT team operators, armored cars, battering rams, tear gas certifications. I could go on, but I think you get the picture. Mm-hmm. We provide search and rescue. When the autistic kid gets lost in the neighborhood, it's the sheriff's office who shows up with 30 personnel and floods the area. And we're getting better and better at that, by the way. We provide the Acadiana Law Enforcement Area Training Academy for these cities and for the Lafayette City. Instead of having to send your people out of town, you send them here. And quite frankly, they're getting the best training in the state, especially since my administration has taken over Alita. We provide the firing range. It's expensive to maintain a firing range, and yet we expect our police officers to be well qualified with their weapons and be proficient with them. We have the parish work crews that the sheriff's office provides to the Lafayette Consolidated Government and to the other city governments, which is about a $250,000 crew that y'all pay in the $50,000 range for. And frankly, it's not a good idea for me to have those crews. I do them because I care about this parish and because I like the way it looks, and I think we all do, to have them picking up trash and cutting grass and all that. But it's a great deal financially. But I tell you what I have to deal with is the influx of contraband that wouldn't be coming into my correctional facility if I didn't do that. I have a conduit. Every crew I have, that is a gaping hole in my security for contraband. But I do it because I'm the sheriff, and I feel like it's my duty to the citizens of this parish. So those are just a few things that I would say to someone who had that idea. You shouldn't duplicate those services that the police department would provide, because it would be tremendously expensive. And then there's all this additional things that we do for the parish that you don't notice them every day, but you'd sorely miss them if they weren't provided. Okay.
And you mentioned earlier that this possible sales tax would come before the voters
on December 8th. That is the after the November ballot, we'll have a runoff that's a regularly scheduled election for any runoffs in the congressional or chief of police races and so forth.
Okay. One final question, and then I'll let you go. You mentioned that this would be split with the City Police of Lafayette.
Yes.
Again, you've come before this is the first that we really hear a lot of information about. How was that process worked? How did the City Police contact you about splitting it to give them about $15 million, or did you contact the City Police?
I'll tell you how it arose. They came to me because they were going to propose to the council that y'all put a measure on the ballot for a sales tax to address their needs. And they wanted to coordinate with us, with the sheriff's office on, hey, look, how do we not get in each other's way? How do we team up on this initiative? And what it evolved into is, well, why don't we just do one tax? So if that makes sense. This was truly a collaborative effort from the very beginning. But, the police department didn't come to me and say, hey, help us, save us, or anything like that. It was more of a, we're going to do this too, and we want to make sure that we're talking. And so I really we're very proud to be associated with them, and it's been a pleasure to work with them so far.
Sheriff, thank you for your time. That's all I have. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Councilman Bellard?
Yes, Sheriff, you might have answered this question already. How much is the 1% currently doing right now, like last year? How much?
$4 million.
$4 million?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, Sheriff, I don't take it back. Councilman Conk.
I was just about to do what you were going to do, is just thank the sheriff. Appreciate you responding to our request that you come before us and give us much more clarification on what you're proposing. Certainly it's of interest to us in the long run, because it is our fiduciary responsibility to provide for the salaries of our police department. So thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
In closing, I'd like to thank the council. Thank you, Mr. Conk, for asking me and offering me the opportunity to appear before the council, Mr. Chairman, and the rest of you. I appreciate your time. Certainly I would ask that you support it going forward, and I'd ask that you feel free to contact me. I'm pretty easy, hopefully, for all of you to get a hold of. And if your assistant, calls my office, for those of you who don't have my personal contact information, I'm happy to spend the time one-on-one with you as additional questions arise. Certainly, we can't cover every question in a forum like this, and there will be more questions and concerns that we need to address. Again, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sheriff.
And Mr. Chair, if I may continue to hold the floor, I would appreciate the opportunity. All right. I can take the hint. I'm in a position of being the lead of one of our liaison committees, and this one deals with the police department. And last week we had a rather interesting meeting, because it came in the wake of some perceived criticism of this council as to how we have addressed the needs of the police department in the city of Lafayette. And Mr. Boudreau and Mr. Castile were the most vocal. And I just wanted to preface my introduction and passing it on to Mr. Boudreau about noting that in the police department salaries, we do have a 3 mil property tax in place today that generates about $5 million. But out of our general fund, every year we add another $15.5 million just for police department salaries. So, as Mr. Boudreau will more eloquently make the comment, we support the Lafayette Police Department, and we have certainly not failed in our responsibility to do so. So, Mr. Boudreau, if you'd give us a few more details as to what you said last week during our rather robust conversation at Liaison.
You have the floor, Mr. Boudreau.
Thank you, sir. Well, simply put, as you indicated, it was unfortunate that these issues grew into some comments being made and a level of media coverage that made it seem as though this administration, a prior administration, this council, and a prior council had done nothing to support the department. I've been here almost 11 complete years now. 10 of those years I've been the member of the police and fire liaison team, and the message that really needed to be put out is to show the level of support that had been given, whether it was a commitment to place this department in at all times, try to keep it at least fourth in pay throughout the state of Louisiana. I think 5 or 6 different pay plans over this almost 11-year time period that we've been here. And I just felt that it was unfair to members of this council, and any council for that matter, who has worked to achieve that, for it to be insinuated that nothing was done. Another very important thing was the manpower shortage issue, which this entire time that we've been here, the record clearly reflects that acknowledgement of the fact that Lafayette Police Department was not at FBI recommendation standards, and an effort to move in that direction has been in place, unbeknownst obviously to some, because there is a commitment, and that started with Chief Kraft, into Chief Thomas, and now into Chief Aguilar, that this council would in fact support whenever the Lafayette Police Department is at full capacity, that 10 positions could be added to the budget to increase its departmental numbers. Full capacity is significant because someone just don't apply to become a police officer today and they're uniformed in a unit and patrolling tomorrow. Actually, I think it's almost somewhere between 9 months to a year for that process. So when you're talking about putting something into the budget and committing to those types of numbers and the cost associated with that, that's just not something you do randomly. So it was more of a clearing the air type session, which leads to what I want to say tonight. I've received calls from residents with some of the acknowledgement of crimes that are committed throughout the city of Lafayette in those reportings. Lafayette is still a safe community. I have the unfortunate responsibility at this time to represent possibly or arguably one of the most unsafe areas based on person-on-person type crime. But that didn't just happen overnight. But Lafayette is still a safe community. And whatever reporting you may see, if you pay close attention, these are the typical and normal crimes that have been taking place for quite some time. Through the efforts of social media, like everything else, you just get a chance to hear about them much faster and more of them, because the normal media does not cover everything every time a police officer goes on a call. But it's important that the residents know. It's important that businesses who are considering locating here know that Lafayette is still safe. And again, when I talk about the area that I represent and the challenges that we already have, when people could Google Lafayette and they Google crime, and we have announcements all over the web indicating what's going on, and when the majority of those land in my lap, it just makes it more difficult to get businesses to fill the areas and the voids that have been placed for quite some time. So certainly consideration needs to be given to that. But again, this council has always and will continue, certainly as long as I'm here, to support the Lafayette Police Department and all responders, as well as every other department. We recognized Carly earlier, there's not a department in Lafayette that's not important to the people. It depends on who you're talking to at the time. It's always goes back to that individual need. So that's what I wanted to accomplish at the liaison meeting. And there was even question that followed. I think it was directed to myself and Mr. Castile, that it seems like we were upset at certain actions. Everybody has the right to do whatever they want. I can't be censored, so I would never attempt to censor anyone. But it needs to be truthful, it needs to be honest, it needs to be accurate, and it needs to be in the best interest. When you go outside of those boundaries, I think it's problematic. And those things that were said at the time that those interviews was had, certainly for me, became problematic simply because I know what the effort has been over the last 10 years by the members of the councils that I have served on and the administrations that I've had to work with. So that's what I wanted to share then, and that is what I share now, Mr. Conk. I thank you for that. I think going forward, whatever resolve that we could bring to meet the needs of the department, to put them in a better position to protect and serve all of our communities, especially those where the needs are greater than others, we need to continue to support that. But how we get there is going to be important on how we get there and what we look like once we're there. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Cole?
Just in closing, we reference the liaison committees. These are, in effect, working subcommittees of the council. We meet on a semi-regular basis as the need calls for. They are public meetings. They are noticed. No official action is taken, but it provides us as council members with some insight that we need to move forward on making decisions at this level during a council session. So if you're interested, the public is more than welcome to attend. For example, the police department liaison schedule is once every quarter. So just check our website for that information. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman Boudreaux, Councilman Conk. Thank you again, Sheriff. Appreciate it. Thank you, Lafayette Police Department, for being here. We're going to now move to comments from the public. And,
we do have one speaker, Andrew Abear, who signed in as a registered city voter.
Okay.
Good evening. I wish the sheriff was still here. I want to congratulate him. I have a merging feeling that the city and the parish will be merged into one. This is the beginning of that merger. This is a way to do it with the taxing district. Mr. Terrio, I was kind of confused by your question. From what I understand from what he's proposing is the 3/4-inch sales tax will be parish-wide. However, that is collected in the city of Lafayette would be split with the city of Lafayette Police Department, not the entire parish fund. So I want to make sure that the public understands that the small towns are not funding anything in the city of Lafayette out of this sales tax. And I think it's great that perhaps he can lead the rest of us on a way to merge the two governments that we voted on. And I think he's got the right track. So I wanted to congratulate him on that and tell him I think he's moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Andy. All right. Any other speakers? Okay. So now we can.
I signed in.
What we didn't get to publics for comment yet. That this was in regards to the sheriff, right? That.
Yes, that's in reference to the sheriff's department. Okay.
Okay. All right. Now we'll move to comments from the public. This portion of our meeting is an opportunity to make your voice heard before the council, the administration, and the public. This is the time to speak about topics that are not included as agenda items. As I noted earlier, requests to make comments specific to an agenda item should be made prior to the call for that agenda item by completing an electronic request to address the council form for each agenda item in which you wish to address. Please, we request that all matters regarding specific city parish employees be directed to the administration and that it not be addressed at this public forum. We as a council have a concern for the privacy and protection of government employees. With that said, however, if your concern is not resolved in either an expeditious or satisfactory fashion, there are other avenues which can be pursued, and we ask that you follow up with the council office. Also, confrontational statements and/or threats will not be tolerated. We ask that you conduct yourself in a civil manner and with the same courtesy that you would expect of others. 5-minute rule is in effect, and do you know how many speakers do we have?
Yes, sir. We do have 6 speakers.
6 speakers, okay. Let's call number 1.
The first speaker is Andrew Hebert, who signed in both as a registered city voter and a registered parish voter.
Lafayette Parish 1. We can do it. It's got a possibility. A few mixed messages, though. The Lafayette Economic Development Authority put out this press release. Lafayette sales tax revenues up 1.3%. But in the body of it, it says sales are down 0.5% in the city of Lafayette and 18.2% in the unincorporated areas of the parish, which is your governing authority. So it appears your money is not rising, it's declining. So I'm getting mixed messages. I just don't understand that. Bruce Conk, you said on May 15th in the Advertiser, Claire had a quote in there. It said that the parish side of the consolidated government is going broke, quote, from the newspaper. Just as it was in 1996 when the city and parish were merged. Well, they weren't merged. Only the governmental functions were merged, according to you. And I want them to be truly merged. The budget adopted every year is misleading because it is presented in one document. But it's actually several budgets. So I'm requesting this council to direct the administration to provide 2 budget documents. One for the city of Lafayette and one for the parish of Lafayette. So people like me and all those other people watching and all the people over here who want to see how the budget works can actually get a copy of a city budget document and see how the money's spent. Then they can get a copy of the parish budget document and see where the money goes. Then they can see the interfund transfers and how they go. It sure would be easier for a lot of people out there, and me too, to follow those budget hearings. And it'd be nice if you had separate budget hearings for the city budget and the parish budget. Because I wouldn't have to sit through all the parish budget if I'm interested in the city, and I wouldn't have to sit through the city's budget if I'm interested in the parish budget. Make it convenient for the public and understanding. I just pointed this out to one of the gentlemen in the audience that the city of Scott elects, the population in the city of Scott elects 3 of your council members. Y'all represent the city of Scott population. City of Doosan has 1 of y'all represented. City of Carencro has 2 of y'all represented. The city of Broussard has 2 representatives, and the city of Youngsville has 1 representative. It's interesting because it's hard to juggle the interest of those who are not consolidated with those who are. And I know, Mr. Terrio, from what I've derived, I think 52% of your elected voters are not consolidated voters, from what I understand. And I understand where you're coming from because you're representing what your constituents want. I appreciate that. However, I would like equal representation. I would like to have each one of you represent an equal number of city residents and an equal number of parish residents, because that's taxation with equal representation. There's something else I wanted to say, but I'm running out of time. But I think you're on the right track with one tax. Thank you.
All right. Councilman Colt.
Mr. Hebert, in response to your request, we actually do that every year when we review the budget. The documentation that is presented to us by the administration is for the Parish of Lafayette budget, for the City of Lafayette budget, the Lafayette Utility System budget, and the LUS Communications budget presented as individual budgets. When we have budget review sessions, which we will begin in the latter part of July, we look at the budgets by department. And those department budgets are based on the consolidation of functions in providing public services under our consolidated form of government. So the documentation is there. In fact, was it the last meeting? We had a report on our 16-17 audit, and he broke it down by parish and by city. So what you have requested is already available.
It's in one book. I'd like 2 separate books.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Next speaker, please.
Next speaker, Ray Green.
We didn't forget about you, Mr. Ray. We got you.
What?
We didn't forget about you. We have you on the list.
Okay. Don't run off. I'm coming.
Carry something for you, sir?
No, I got it. Thank you for your patience. My name is Ray Green. I live in District 6. I'm a community activist, a voter, a taxpayer, and a spokesman for Project Armchair. I have a couple of comments and an invitation. I'm well aware of the old saying that you catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. I'm not interested in catching flies. I'm interested in doing something for the disabled in the community, which is more than I can say for some people based on actions. I'm speaking for thousands of local voters, taxpayers, seniors, disabled veterans, expectant mothers, and others who are tired of being neglected, ignored, overlooked, and denied our constitutional equal rights in public places in this city and parish. Now, there are times in life when you have to stand up and tell it like it is. I'm telling the truth, and facts will verify it and back it up. This council is building a legacy, but unfortunately one that brings tears rather than smiles. The council is denying the disabled of our pride, our independence, our safety and protection due to your negligence and lack of compassion, lack of caring, understanding, and concern for refusing our rights of equality. 9 of you are turning your backs on the disabled. For your information, ladies and gentlemen, the disabled have lives too, and their lives matter. For these reasons, for the record, I am publicly charging this council with disability discrimination, dereliction of duty, and benign neglect. It's very sad for me to have to say this, but it's true. And you can throw in a little bit of touch of hypocrisy while you're at it, based on your past actions. It's said by reliable sources that you don't like to make mandates.
Mr. Ray Green,
but
I'm going to ask you to watch your comments towards this council, please.
I will, but I'm telling the truth. As long as I'm telling the truth, what's the problem?
It's where you coming at with it.
You don't like the truth?
I don't mind the truth.
I can lie if you like.
That's not what I'm getting at, sir. I'm going to ask you, as per I read, or you can come and sit down.
You have stated that you don't like to make mandates. But every council meeting you make mandates. You're going to be making 11 tonight after I get through. But nearly all the meetings, tonight, for example, you got 11 of them coming up. A perfect example of your don't like to make mandates is your smoking prohibition, which refers to every single public accommodations in the area and others which you have passed. So I'm again asking for just one of you, all it takes is one of you, to put Project Armchair back on the agenda for our discussion to settle the matter. Now here's my invitation. This Thursday, June 21st at 4 p.m. at the Piccadilly Cafeteria in the Oil Center, an organization called The Greatest Generation will be having a meeting. This group consists of World War II veterans, the Korean War, such as myself, Vietnam, and other actions. Some of us are in the 90s, 80s, some Pearl Harbor survivors, a couple of former prisoners of war. I want you to look at them in the face and say, thank you for your service, but you don't, in our eyes, deserve the right for equal protection and equal rights in public places. So you can take your, shall we say, your pride and your independence and safety concerns and set them aside. And let's see what happens. Let's see if any of you show up for this invitation. I want you to look at these veterans and tell them they don't deserve to have a chair with arms so they can help themselves. Is this council going to continue to build your legacy of throwing the disabled under the bus by showing your lack of compassion, concern, and understanding? Your lack of positive action on this will speak volumes. Do you have any questions, I hope? Well, this proves a point. See, nobody has enough interest to even ask a question. Thanks a lot. I'll be back.
All right. Thank you so much. Not seeing any questions at this time. Next speaker, please.
Francesco Krakow.
Thank you, City Parish Council members, for allowing me to speak. I'm here representing Move the Mindset, and I'm here to speak about the removal of the Jim Crow statue downtown. Before I get started on that, though, I just want to recognize that today is a significant anniversary for this nation. Most Americans celebrate July 4th as Independence Day, but as we all know, July 4th was not the Day of Independence for Americans with dark skin. Right? African Americans were not set free on July 4th. Many African Americans celebrate June 19th as the Day of Independence, and that's because June 19th, 1865 was when the Union Army rolled into the farthest reaches of the Confederacy, into Texas, into Galveston, and declared the emancipation of the slaves. That day is otherwise known as Juneteenth. So I just want to put on the record that today is the anniversary of another American independence. Okay. The campaign to move our Jim Crow Confederate statue began 3 years ago, long before most southern cities were even thinking about statue removals. So we were ahead of the pack. Since then, many southern cities have removed their statues. I'm just going to name them, some of them. Memphis, Tennessee, Austin, Texas, Bradenton, Florida, Dallas, Texas, Daytona Beach, Florida, Durham, North Carolina, Gainesville, Florida, Lexington, Kentucky, Kansas City, Missouri, Louisville, Kentucky, Nashville, Tennessee, Orlando, Florida, San Antonio, Texas, St. Louis, Missouri, St. Petersburg, Florida, and of course New Orleans. Baton Rouge has removed their statue, and Shreveport. These are just some of the cities that have beaten us to the moral punchline by removing their statues. And there are other cities that are planning to do so. Their city councils have it in the works. Houston, Atlanta, Pensacola, Jacksonville, Richmond, Birmingham, Alabama, and Charlottesville, Virginia. Now, if we had moved our statue 3 years ago when we started this campaign, I think all of you were here then, Lafayette would have been a moral leader, right? We could have said we were number one in removing hateful Jim Crow era statue. Okay, now we'd be number 50 or whatever it is. By moving the mindset here, we could have moved the nation. But sadly, we were blocked by an unjust injunction and a century of prejudice. Other cities took the lead, and we fell behind. The issue of Jim Crow Confederate statue removals is no longer as controversial as it was 3 years ago. It's not a controversy anymore. Today, removing these statues is no longer a moral hazard. It's a moral necessity. The question for us is not if, but when. Many people ask us why we call it a Jim Crow statue. Jim Crow is the name given to the period between Reconstruction and civil rights, roughly 1878 to 1954, which marks the beginning of the civil rights era. It was a period characterized by the suppression of black civil rights, devastating segregation, violent lynchings, in new forms of slavery, such as sharecropping and prison labor. Virtually all of the Confederate monuments went up during this period, many of them placed by the United Daughters of the Confederacy, like ours. They donated our statue to the city in 1922, right in the middle of the Jim Crow period, and like all the rest, it was intended to be a beacon of white supremacy, a clear and present reminder of the racial pecking order. For instance, Dr. Swanson's groundbreaking research, and some of you I'm sure have seen Rick Swanson's presentation, his research on racism and civil rights in Lafayette reveals that at around the same time that the statue went up, the city council illegally established discriminatory red lines for housing. And their effects are still visible today, actually. So we call it a Jim Crow statue because that's what it is, a statue to celebrate the racist politics and ideology of Jim Crow, which was really slavery by another name. They used Confederate soldiers as convenient icons for this new system of oppression. By not removing its racist Jim Crow Confederate statue, Lafayette has fallen behind its sister cities across the South. It's time we catch up. Councilmen and women, I appeal to your highest ideals and sense of moral fairness. Please work with us to remove the statue. Let's show the nation and the world that Lafayette is willing to do whatever it takes to honor all of its citizens, not just those represented by that statue. Thank you. I'm going to submit my words to the...
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Next speaker, Mike Stagg.
Hi, thank you all. Thank you for making us wait. My name is Mike Stagg. I'm here also to speak about the Jim Crow statue in downtown Lafayette. There's a new museum in Montgomery, Alabama, the National Museum for Peace and Justice. It commemorates lynchings of several thousand people in over 800 counties around the country, most of them in the South. There is a monument there for Lafayette, for 6 Lafayette residents who were lynched in this parish during the Jim Crow era. The statue that sits at the corner of Lee and Jefferson in front of the old City Hall, if you read the newspapers from 1922 when that statue was erected, before it was unveiled, its purpose was to celebrate white supremacy. In the words in the paper, in the words from the governor at that time, it was celebrated by religious leaders for that purpose. These statues were erected across the South. There were pageantry involved in each of these unveilings. It celebrates the lost cause. The lost cause is, in fact, the mythology of the Civil War, that the Civil War was about something else other than slavery, about the ability of whites to own non-whites, about the ability to spread that system, that property system that treated humans as property across the rest of the country. That's what that war was about. But they tried to cultivate, through, again, the United Daughters of the Confederacy, this idea that somehow this was a noble culture that was based on slavery. When you think about it, the wealth of Lafayette, in 1860, there were more slaves in Lafayette Parish than there were white people. The wealth of the South was built on slavery. This is the legacy that this statue celebrates. Again, when you go to 1922, this is 60 years after the Civil War, when that statue was erected, the purpose was to celebrate white supremacy. We invite people from around the world to come to Lafayette. The old City Hall is now the International Center. We had hundreds of thousands of people here for Festival International, mostly from cultures, French cultures and other parts of the globe. Many musicians are black people. Their cultures are former colonies. How do we greet these people? We greet them with a statue that celebrates white supremacy. When you bring in people from other countries here to do business and they go to the International Center, what symbol do we show them? We show them the symbol of a vigilante who tracked runaway slaves, who possibly killed runaway slaves, who persecuted people who helped runaway slaves. The sole purpose of that statue is, to celebrate not the man, but the system. Again, this was 60 years after the Civil War. Some of the communities that have these statues don't have anyone local that they could celebrate. So like the one in Shreveport in front of the Caddo Parish Courthouse is just a Confederate soldier. They took someone here and made that the symbol that they wanted to celebrate. Lafayette likes to position itself as a progressive community. That's how we sell ourselves to the rest of the world. We invest in technology. We celebrate our education. We celebrate our culture here. But there's a fundamental disconnect here. The inconvenient truth is that as long as that statue stays on public ground that belongs to everyone in this community, that celebrates only a portion of the history of this community, then we are not a progressive community that we present ourselves to be. As the political leaders of this parish, unfortunately the duty falls to you to address this, and only you can remedy this. And so I call on you to do the right thing. Take down this statue or put it in a context. That's the only way you can make it right. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Michael Ferguson.
Good evening, council members. I admit I'm not as dynamic a speaker as my predecessors, but I do have some facts to share with you. Former President George W. Bush said at the dedication ceremony to the National Museum of African American History and Culture, "A great nation does not hide its history. It faces its flaws and it corrects them." Our General Alfred Mouton Monument is a monument to the lost cause of the Confederacy. In short, the lost cause narrative views the American Civil War as an honorable struggle for the Southern way of life while minimizing or denying the central role of slavery. Critics have stated that the lost cause narrative also represents the mistaken idea that whites are somehow superior to blacks. It denies the fact that the Confederacy was on the wrong side of humanity in its institution of slavery and the slave economy. So the General Mouton Monument would honor a man who fought not for the freedom of all Louisiana citizens, but to